Welcome on into BKL Nightly. I'm Thad Brown along with Caleb Card tonight. It is the day after the Bills get that big win over the Bucs, 44-32, Monday, November 17th. Got a lot to get to. This is a Thursday game week, so there is a full-scale injury report. We'll talk about what's going on injury-wise with the Texans, too. Plus, get you ready for week number, what are we on, 12 now?
12, I believe, yeah.
Week 12 it is. All right, let's start with that injury report. Like I said, this is actually an official injury report, not anything that just Sean McDermott said. First of all, there were 5 players who did not practice today. Khalil Shakir not listed because he was personal reasons only. Mecole Hardman at the top of the list. Calf injury, 1 game in already on the injury list. Unfortunately, this is kind of part of the Mecole Hardman experience. I did see him limping off the field after the game yesterday, so not totally surprised to see him on the injury report. Curtis Samuel, elbow and neck injury. He's also a newer guy. Had an okay game yesterday, had that crazy catch that he had, and then it popped up in the air, and then he toe tapped his way to get the catch again. So he is on the injury report. In the middle there, Dalton Kincaid, Fedarian Mathis, 2 guys who did not play last week. I would be really surprised if Kincaid is on the field after such a quick turnaround with that hamstring injury. Beyond that, there are 16 players in all who are on the injury report. Here are kind of the top names. The 3 guys at the top in terms of limited players are the new ones. Connor McGovern, the center. And remember that Bills offensive line, no one ever gets hurt. So the fact we see anyone on the injury report, kind of a shock. Not a shock, but certainly a surprise for the health that group has had over the last couple of years. Josh Palmer, I wonder if this is just you've been out for a while, first game back. Now we have a practice that we theoretically have to do day after a game. So you're going to be limited just to make sure that everything recovered just fine. But he is a new name who was not on the injury report, at least at the end of last week. And then Jordan Phillips with the wrist injury, he is limited. After that, Benford, Bernard, Taron Johnson, Dorian Williams, those were guys who were all on the injury report last week. And I would assume things that the Bills will just continue to monitor as they move towards this Thursday night game against the Texans here. All right. In addition to that, Sean McDermott, Caleb talked about the injuries today and really discussed what kind of a pain in the neck it is to have a Thursday game.
Yeah, there were a lot of injuries on that report, and he kind of went into the fact that given that we are, 3 days away from the next game, there's going to be a lot that goes into making sure the guys are healthy and ready to go.
Somewhat to be expected, just coming off of a game yesterday. So key is we got to get them as fresh as we can for Thursday night. Somewhere in there, you'd like to be able to get in some level of practice. So that's probably the biggest, finding that delicate balance between not practicing, doing a walkthrough, and getting some level of practice in. So we'll find that sweet spot.
All right, in addition to the Bills injuries, the Texans have a major one. Quarterback C.J. Stroud has been nursing a concussion. He did not practice, and that's pretty much being universally taken as Davis Mills is going to be the quarterback again against the Bills on Thursday. So despite the fact that the Bills have a laundry list of injuries for Monday, I think it's pretty clear the team that's hurting the most is the team that will be missing its starting quarterback in the Houston Texans.
Yeah, especially when you look at that, obviously there's a lot of players on there, and there's a lot of players that we don't like that are on there, but a lot of them for the Bills. But a lot of them are limited, and a lot of them were limited last week, and they still played. So there's really no reason, like a guy like Christian Benford, for example, there's no reason to think that he won't be out there on Thursday. And then obviously some of these guys that are DNPs like Dalton Kincaid, I think we all knew that he was going to be out for a while. So it's not that some of these aren't really too big of a surprise. But I don't think, although it's a big injury report, I don't think they'll be too banged up come Thursday, as long as, they take the steps that they need to throughout the week. But yeah, if you don't have C.J. Stroud out there, the Texans' offense was already kind of struggling this season.
To put it generously.
Yeah, and without C.J. Stroud, it's probably going to look a lot rougher, which honestly the Bills' defense could probably use.
For sure. We'll talk more about the Texans tomorrow when we get more into the actual game preview, talk to some of the Bills up in Orchard Park about that. I think the only injury part that I would even be remotely concerned about is that Mecole Hardman and Curtis Samuel both nursing things. You might have a situation where the receiving core, which with Josh Palmer kind of banged up last week and Dalton Kincaid being out, the pass catching core would be further depleted. But even then, I agree with you, not a giant concern. Keon Coleman did not play against the Bucks because of the benching after being late for a meeting again. Both Sean McDermott and offensive coordinator Joe Brady addressed that today. The general overview on the Keon Coleman situation is they're not going to commit concretely to anything, and kind of Keon Coleman has done his time. But here's what the two coaches had to say about where Keon Coleman stands now and going forward.
The conversations with him is about, hey, where do we go from here? How do we continue to find ways to get better and be where we need to be when we need to be there? And I still have all the faith in Keon that he's going to help us this year and get us to where we ultimately need to get to.
You grow from it, we can move forward. And you don't grow from it, it's hard to move forward. So ultimately becomes about developing trust and the trust that your teammates have in you. And that trust builds through repetition and consistency. And so that's the direction that we need him to go, and we believe he will go.
So the Bills, as I said, non-committal about whether Keon Coleman's going to play on Thursday. We're going to address that in a minute. But in terms of what they did, what was talked about today, I really wasn't surprised. I didn't think there was any need for the Bills to Sean McDermott to come out and say, for sure, Keon Coleman's going to play or not play. Even to the point where you kind of laugh at some coaches who may just do the whole, I don't know what quarterback I'm going to play, just for competition reasons. The Bills could do that with Keon this week and make the Texans work about whether or not he's going to be on the field. He is a unique piece, even if he's not super effective at this point. So overall, I think certainly the Bills were coloring in between the lines when it comes to how they address Keon Coleman on Monday.
Yeah, they've just kind of stuck with the generic things that they have the entire situation around Keon, not just this week, back when he was benched for the first quarter. What I'm now
New England game.
New England, there it is.
Yep.
So they've just kind of, I don't want to use the term tiptoed around it, but it's just been very generic. You know, he's got to be better. He's got to grow. We've got to help him, and he's got to be where he needs to be. All those kind of things. So nothing from today really surprised me about what they had to say, because it's the same thing that they have been saying, and we just haven't seen anything change yet.
Joe Brady did go with the full-throated support, which isn't a surprise. Joe Brady said a couple weeks ago that, look, if I don't have confidence in these guys, how do they have confidence in themselves? So Brady stayed consistent there in that, look, Keon's made mistakes, but I still believe in him. I still think he's going to be a big part of this offense, because that's what Joe Brady does. So I respect Joe Brady for taking that approach, at least. All right, the Bills are now still a game and a half behind the Patriots in the AFC East, but the later we get in the season, the easier it gets to lay out exactly what needs to happen for the Bills to stay in contention and eventually win the division. So here's where the Bills are at after Week 11. Scenarios for the Bills to win the AFC East, although Scenario 1, Scenario 2, or Scenario 3, are basically the same thing. Number 1, Bills run the table. If that happens, then New England has to lose another game other than the game the Bills would win if they beat New England in Foxborough in a few weeks. Scenario 2, the Bills win the rest of their AFC games. So Week 17 against Philly doesn't matter for this one. And then New England has to lose one more division game. And you see, other than Buffalo, the other two division games the Patriots have left, Jets and Dolphins, last 2 weeks of the year. Then Scenario 3 is just simply have a better record, because Scenario 2 is the only way the Bills would win a tiebreaker with New England. Any other scenario, even the first one, involves Buffalo simply having a better record. With the tiebreakers, the problem is right now is the Bills are behind head-to-head because they lost, behind in the division because they lost to Miami, and they're also behind in common games. And I don't want to dig into that, but it's because New England's one of their 2 losses is to the Raiders, who the Bills don't play. So it actually helps New England tiebreaker-wise. Separate of that, bottom line overall, end game for this, the Bills have a 15% chance to win the division. How reasonable does that number sound to you? Because to me, I think the Bills are maybe a little better off than that.
I think that number seems pretty right. I think the Bills have a decent chance of running the table. Even with, you got Houston, you got Pittsburgh, you got the Patriots, you got the Eagles. Even with all that, it looks a little bit rough, but I think they're on the up. So I think they could definitely run the table. What makes me think that 15 is the right number and I don't want to go up is because the Patriots could very easily run the table outside of Buffalo as well. You know, you only have their remaining schedule is the Bengals, the Jets. Well, okay. They're at the Bengals. They're home for the Giants. Then they play the Bills. Then they're at the Ravens. They're at the Jets. And they're home for the Dolphins. I don't really see them losing any of those games outside of the Bills game. The only one that I think could potentially be a loss is against the Baltimore Ravens. They're on the road against Baltimore, and they'd be coming off the game against the Bills. And if the Bills can beat them, and if the Bills can beat them handily, then maybe that deters them a little bit, and that makes it a little bit easier for the Ravens to get a win there. But outside of the Bills and the Ravens, I don't see a game here that I would even say would be close to them losing.
I agree with that on the other games. I think right now I would pick Baltimore to win that game. Drake May in New England in December, with the Ravens probably paying for their lives one way or another.
Yeah.
That's a really, really hard game. You know, I don't even know if the Patriots will be less than a 3-point underdog, to be honest. I think Baltimore would be a pretty comfortable favorite. I think they win that game. Not easily. Patriots are a good team. Mm-hmm. So the thing with the two scenarios we brought up, really the difference is, do you think it's more likely Buffalo runs the table, which really means beating New England and Philly, or is it more likely the Patriots drop one of those division games?
I think it's probably more likely that Buffalo runs the table. I will say that outside of the Bills game and the Ravens game, the Dolphins game is probably the one, because you had made a point earlier that the Dolphins could also be fighting for their lives in that game. They could find themselves in a playoff scenario come the final week of the year. So maybe they have a little bit more to fight for, but I think it's much more likely that the Bills run the table than it is that the Patriots drop one to either the Jets or the Dolphins.
Dolphins could win their next 4. I don't remember the schedule off the top of my head. I looked at it earlier, but they have a bunch of very doable games coming up. And if they're 8-8 going to the last game of the season, not out of the realm that Miami has a playoff chance in that last game up in Foxborough against New England. All right, we will certainly keep you up to date on that as we go through the rest of the season. After the game yesterday, Deion Dawkins, who I'm sure many of you have seen talking about Keon Coleman and their relationship, also got a question about an incident that happened on the sideline. That was the third quarter. It was after Deion Dawkins committed his first false start penalty of the game. That penalty, in part, led to the Bills going 3 and out on their first possession of the second half. The argument was between Deion and it seemed like David Edwards primarily. Spencer Brown had to pull Deion away on multiple occasions. It was fairly heated. It was probably about as steamed as you see the Bills sideline get since we've come to the Josh Allen, Sean McDermott days where they win all the time. Teams who lose probably fight like that more often. Before you and I discuss it, Deion did get a question about it afterward, and here's what he had to say about that incident on the sideline.
Our line is good because we care. Emotions fly. We're grown men, and we play and we feel and we speak with a lot of passion. That's what you're saying. I'm very passionate, There's limits to it, but we're all very passionate. I love each and every one of my guys, and they know that as well as I know that coming from the other way. And we're a brotherhood, and I don't know about you, but in every household, people fight. Every marriage, people fight. And every brother and sister and cousin and uncle and aunt, there's fights, right? So you guys get to see us on the main screen fighting. There's nowhere for us to hide when we fight.
Now, I buy into just about all of that from Deion Dawkins. This offensive line has seemed really tight for a long time. Because they constantly stay healthy and don't ever get hurt, they play together all the time too, so they've really gotten to know each other. Deion Dawkins has raved about the room that Aaron Cromer has built there. So while there might theoretically be something more dangerous brewing in the offensive line, and this is an example, this fight is an example of that, I would be very, very surprised. I think this is probably exactly the way Deion described it. These guys want to win. It's obviously an important game coming off the Miami loss the week before. The first part of that second half, still a very close game. I can see guys getting heated on the sideline. I really, at least for now, think this is a giant nothing burger, even if it looked pretty nasty when it happened.
Yeah, emotions were high, and emotions are going to continue to be high for this Bills team. I mean, we just went through the AFC East scenario. They're playing from behind right now. So emotions are going to continue to be high. Every game is a big game for Buffalo. So it's not surprised that there's going to be, some some little things going on the sidelines as players are just trying to win every single game, win every single snap. But yeah, I agree with you that I'm not worried about it right now. I mean, if stuff for some reason continues to happen, then at that point I would maybe get a little concerned. But one little argument on the sideline isn't making me throw my hands up in the air at all.
For sure. I agree. All right, let's move on. Time for the BKL Nightly Roundtable. Question number 1 for tonight. Keon Coleman. He will ostensibly, likely, not be inactive this week. I guess maybe he could be. Should he play if you are running the Buffalo Bills? This is not, do you think he will play, what the Bills will do. If you're making the call, should Keon Coleman be on the field Thursday in Houston?
Not at the extent that he has throughout the rest of the season. No.
Okay, I get that.
I love what I talked about it so much in last night's podcast. I love what I saw from Shavers yesterday. Like even on the plays where he wasn't catching the ball, like he had a couple really nice blocks. He had a couple really nice routes even when he wasn't targeted. I feel like Terrell Shavers, at least just the eye test, looked better than Coleman has for most of this season, in my opinion. For that reason, I want to see Shavers more. And if you bring Coleman back, that bumps Shavers back down theoretically. So for that reason, I'm going to say no. Also, Gabe Davis played decent. Like Gabe Davis had a decent day. And honestly, from what I saw, Gabe Davis was pretty much what Keon Coleman has been when you look at like level of play. Now, the problem is Keon Coleman has kind of been thrown in and has been expected more of him. So for that reason, we think that he's been playing really bad. But when you look at what Coleman has done production-wise the last few weeks and what Gabe Davis did production-wise yesterday, they're honestly pretty close. They're pretty much the same. So Gabe Davis kind of filled that role nicely. And also, I really love Terrell Shavers. And so for those two reasons, I would say at least not as much as he has been. I personally think he probably will end up playing at the same level he has been, but I wouldn't be upset if he wasn't out there.
I walked into this conversation saying, yes, he should play, end of story. You've kind of talked me out of that a little bit. I think bringing him back at a lesser snap count makes some sense. Here's the thing. The Shavers touchdown was a broken play where he was being defended by a linebacker. You should win that all the time. The play he had at the end of the first half wasn't a blown coverage. It was just maybe it was a blown coverage, but it was just a good call by Joe Brady. So that's 78 or whatever it was of his 90 yards explained. It wasn't like Tyrell Shavers is out there winning routes. I love the guy. He works hard. And I would not be against giving him more chances. But there's not a lot on film with him throughout the year where I say this is a guy that can just win and be good on his own.
Yeah.
I think you nailed it on Gabe Davis, though. Gabe Davis is Keon Coleman without expectations.
Exactly.
And that's okay. That can be a productive player in the NFL. But Keon Coleman has expectations for a reason. And why I think the Bills should put him back out on the field is that you want to see if you can realize those expectations. Because the group you had in there against Tampa, I have a low amount of confidence that group wins 3 games in January and plays like they did against the Bucs on Sunday. Maybe I'm wrong. But for that reason, I want to get Keon Coleman back on the field because the path to getting whatever you hope to get out of Coleman is going to go through him playing.
This might be a conversation for another day, but a quick theoretical question for you. You want to put Keon Coleman out there to see if we can get those expectations. At what point do fans or media or the Bills say, okay, we're not going to get those expectations? Like, what do you need to see to say we're not going to get the expectations?
3 different answers. A lot of fans are already out because fan is short for fanatic. Yes. There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
I think for media, for me, I would give him into next year. You draft a guy that highly. I liked him enough in the pre-draft process to understand why the Bills took him where they did. So I'm not going to be out on him after year 2, especially where year 1 was a little bit injury marred. But early next year, like you got to show me something quick. The Bills are probably a little longer timeline than I have. Because for the Bills, they actually made an investment. I didn't make any investment. I'm just talking about the guy. So for them, there's more of a feeling of, or it's less of, I just like the guy. It's more of, we used a high pick on this player. We're going to make every effort to get something out of him.
Makes sense.
All right. Question number 2 here. Of that passing game that succeeded against the Bucs, how much of it do you buy into going forward? We kind of touched on this a little bit in this last conversation we just had. Whether it's the running backs, whether it's Shavers, what we saw on Sunday do we think the Bills maybe can or more likely should try and keep going back to?
I think the cop-out answer is Josh Allen. Just
being good?
Just Josh Allen being good and Josh Allen continuing to play at Josh Allen level. But the answer I'll actually have is using the running backs in the pass game a little bit more. I thought that looked really good. Cook was kind of shut down, and they hit him a couple times out of the backfield. He had a couple nice plays. I think Ty Johnson, even Ray Davis. Ray Davis wasn't really used in the passing game too much. He was more on the kickoff. But they're all very athletic. If you get the right matchup, they can all make plays out of the backfield. So I think if they can get used in the passing game a little bit more, that might help open up some of the receivers, and it might help open up the run game a little bit too. If James Cook is maybe struggling, you hit him out wide a couple times, maybe it opens up a hole in the middle. But I think that's one that I could definitely see being going to more often.
That's exactly my answer. I think the running backs is the play. Ty Johnson was missing, frankly, from this year. He was a guy who was much more productive last season. I'm going to talk about him in a second here. But James Cook, too. James Cook is not a great route runner. I think some people out there think you could put him out in the slot and have him run patterns like he's Marshall Faulk or something. He's not that guy. But if you give him the ball in space, as we saw against the Bucs, he will make things happen. Brady has gone to that play action rollout where Cook fakes a run to the right and then Allen basically turns around and throws him the ball. It got stoned against Miami on 4th down, but it's worked 2 other times for big first down gains. Keep that in the playbook. Cook out of the backfield on rail routes, on wheel routes. I think getting 4 involved in the passing game as much as you can is something that can be an impact. The reason I want to save the Ty Johnson conversation is because our next part of the BKL Nightly Roundtable is confidence up, concern up, which we do after every game. And for me, confidence up is going to be Ty Johnson. I like the fact that not only is it just in this game, but the last couple, you've seen him used a little bit more in the short screen to the outside. He's been effective, converted a 3rd down. I think it was 2 games ago against Kansas City. So the Bills have found another way that, you get a release valve for the offense with 26, but also a way to get Ty Johnson involved. He had a really nice run in this Bucs game too, a patient run. And that part of his game is very underrated. He can do the running back thing. Not a lot. He's not James Cook, but he's not going to hurt you. He's going to go to the right hole, and he can make some plays. And then there was a point in the end of the first half where James Cook was in pass protection a couple times, and the book on Cook has been he can't do it. You saw why over and over and over. Well, Ty Johnson comes in, and all of a sudden the blitz protection looks good. So all those things together, that's why he's my answer for the guy that I feel a little more confident about today. Caleb?
Yeah, I like that one. I definitely wouldn't be mad if he was out there a little bit more. My answer is going to be Jordan Poyer. When he kind of came on, when he started to get more reps, I honestly saw it as more of like it's just a veteran guy that's maybe going to help bump up the defense and maybe help Cole Bishop. I mean, he's proved these last couple games, especially yesterday, led the team in tackles. He's proved that he can actually still be, I don't want to say high-end safety, but like he can still be a starting safety, like a reliable starting safety in this league, which honestly, I don't know if I thought he could have been a few weeks ago. Now, he did have a missed tackle on the Sean Tucker's 3rd touchdown. Baker Mayfield hit him out of the backfield, and then Poyer was unable to wrap him up. So that was a rough play. But outside of that, he led the team in tackles. He had a few other really nice plays. I mean, the duo of him and Cole Bishop are starting to look actually very, very good.
Poyer was my backup answer for this. 15 tackles, by the way. That's a career high. Never done that before all the great years he's had in his career. All right, on the flip side, concern up. Who are you a little more worried coming out of this game?
This one was a little bit tougher for me. Because even though the defense didn't play a great day, when I looked at like individual guys, there weren't many that like stood out to me. So I'm going to go with Matt Milano. This isn't really like a this week one. This is kind of like a thing that's been growing the past few weeks. He just hasn't been doing anything.
Anything is probably strong, but I hear what you're saying.
I just haven't really seen him out there. He hasn't. We haven't seen high numbers of tackles from him like we used to. In the passing game, like in the coverage game, he hasn't been too strong in the coverage game. I just haven't seen much of him to make me confident that he's still like a good linebacker and he can still like make some big plays. He used to, it seems like every other week a few years ago, he was making big plays. And I just haven't really seen that. Like I said, this is one that's kind of been building up for a while, but I'm going to go with Matt Milano.
The not above average status for Matt Milano, I can see that argument. I can see where you're going with that. The one I thought of was also defensive, Deion Walker. And this is not about Deion Walker's a bad player. I think he's still a good player. But the way the Bills got gashed in the run game by a Tampa offense that's not really good to begin with as a running team, and they did it with not even their starting running back, the guy in the middle I have to have concern about. And then on top of that, when both Sean McDermott and Bobby Babbitt talked about him on Monday addressing the media, they both said, yeah, he's doing things, but we need more consistency. A lot of times when I watch the film and then hear a coach talk about a player, I'm trying to listen between the lines and thinking to myself, okay, from what I've seen, if I got that question in a press conference setting, how would I answer it? And when the way they answer it, not exactly necessarily saying exactly what I think, but being the person who represents the player you're talking about and not wanting to just trash him in front of the media, I'm trying to, put myself in that spot. The way they address Deion Walker is exactly the way I'm seeing him play. And it's because the good is good, but the bad needs work.
Yeah.
And when the Bucs are running the ball the way they did against Buffalo on Sunday, I think there's still an amount of work that needs to be done. But still a rookie who I'm very, very optimistic about. Speaking of guys who deserve some optimism, we talked about Terrell Shavers and the game he had against the Bucs. You know what? We were not the only ones to talk about it. The Bills had plenty to say after the game on Sunday.
The guy just continues to work extremely hard. He's never once complained. Working from practice squad to now making legit plays in the NFL. And then you turn around after he scores a touchdown, he's on kickoff. He's on punt return. He's doing all these things. And it's fun to watch. It's inspiring.
Dude gets his nose dirty every single week in the run game, and never complains about anything. Just does whatever he's told to do. It does his 111th every single play, and I always have the saying, "What goes around comes around," and I think that came to real life today. So I'm super proud of him.
It's amazing, honestly. This is what you work for. I knew the opportunity was going to come eventually this season. It's just a matter of when. For me, it's just always staying ready, so I didn't have to get ready, and that's something that I was ready for.
Love Terrell Shavers. Love the work ethic. Love the way he approaches things. And I felt this way years ago when he was battling to be a guy in the practice squad. Obviously, in training camp, we kind of joke about these are the guys who are training camp stars. But Shavers is being productive on the field. And yeah, I said earlier in the show, I don't know if I trust him to be the receiver I want on the field in January. I will trust him to lay a block on anyone at any point in the year. And he had a key one to finish off the Ty Johnson touchdown. He has been this team's best blocking receiver by a significant margin. Now, Gabe Davis kind of muddies that. But there are a lot of things to talk about Shavers' game that are very, very positive.
He is 100% on every single play, whether he's the main target, if he's the main read, or if it's like a run play, or even if he's like, I know I'm the decoy on this play. It doesn't matter. He's giving 100%. And I mean, that's a guy. How do you not love that?
Sean McDermott got a question today about, is it fair to Shavers that because he's so good on special teams, he might not get a shot with the offense more full time, that you don't want to pull him away from that group because of what he's doing on offense? I think Shavers, his snap counts have been close to 50% the last 5 games. A lot of that is due to Josh Palmer's injury, but I think he's a guy that has earned himself some more time with the offense. How much the Bills want to afford, because there is a little push-pull to that. You can't just say, oh, he's playing great, yank him off special teams. It's still a part of the game. Mm-hmm. You still got to go out and cover those kicks, especially now with the way the kickoff rules have changed the last couple of years. All right, that's going to do it for us today. We have a whole lot more coming up this week, a little schedule update for this program. The Tuesday show will be more like a Wednesday show. We have a lot of updates, interviews. Josh Allen we'll hear from Orchard Park. Then on Wednesday, that'll be the normal Tuesday show. Me and Carl Jones doing Let's Talk Ball, breaking down the Bills and the Bucs. Either way, it is a game week that is now underway. Bills and the Texans will get it on Thursday night down in Houston. Thanks for watching today. For Caleb Carr, I'm Thad Brown. We appreciate you watching. We'll see you back right here on this station tomorrow evening.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 On Demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.